Okay, so I was actually going to do another video this week on a more biomechanical aspects in terms of the torso and the movement, 80% of movement that gives, and the breathing mechanics, how that affects that, such, etc, etc. But I actually came across this clip. For context, it's Petr Čech talking about the Champions League final against Bayern Munich. Obviously, he was playing for Chelsea at the time, and I just found it very fascinating. Some insights into the athletic mindset, as well as where things like breath coaching would come in.
So prior to this final, we took every member of the Bayern squad, and we took every penalty of Bayern squad members since 2007.
So that's a lot of research. You're talking about 5 years of viewing footage, which blows my mind, even though I know it's something that happens and that we analyse that stuff. But it blows my mind that we're getting to that level of detail. And imagine the data set from that level of detail that you have to process and then memorise so you can implement it in game.
And we made a plan. Probability, you look at probability, data, everything. So everything's there.
Again, then you start talking about probability and looking at that data set to actually look at statistical outcomes that you're then going to implement in game and balance that probability. It's obviously a gamble because it's probability that's going to happen. It might not. They might do something completely different, which you don't expect, and they get that penalty, especially in a final. But it's interesting to see that level of data set that they're looking at and the maths behind it. That when we think of football or sports and athletes, we think of it in a very physical terms and less in these mental terms.
Then that penalty happened, yeah, and you go, okay, it's a Champions League final, 104th, 5th minute, whatever it was. You know how stressed you are, how tired you are.
This is really interesting because we're talking about a Champions League final. We're talking about one of the pinnacles that you can do in your sport, being football, and that you're not going to start risking things in this moment, doing some flashy stuff, looking fancy, or doing something completely off the cuff that you're not 100% dialed in. And this goes for most sports, that you will fall, the habits you fall into are always going to be there. You can do fancy stuff, you can try and learn something new, but your habitual, the habits that you have are always going to be the stuff that you fall back to when you are stressed, when you're in those high moments of anxiety, when it's the last 15 minutes of a game or the penalty shootout of a game. You're going to fall back into those habits because that is what your body knows best. And when the system is stressed, when the nervous system is stressed, when you're in that fight or flight and you have no techniques to calm down, that's what you're going to fall back to.
It's a left-footed player with a really strong shot. Here, Arjen has a very strong shot. He has short back left, but he hits it, it goes fast. He can curl it, obviously, but then you just go, okay, would you try to curl a perfect shot when you're tired, stressed in that moment? Or you know you have a strong shot, so you basically hammer it across because left foot easier, and you make it hard for everybody to save it.
You're in those moments of you need to perform, you need to score. This is a Champions League final. It's high stress, you're tired, you're fatigued already, you're mentally tired and fatigued, not just physically. You're always going to fall back into that sure thing, which is hitting it hard and fast. You're not going to do a curling shot because you don't want to mess it up and look silly and be like, why didn't I just hit it hard and fast just to get that goal in? And this is what often we explore with our athletes when we're coaching in terms of breath work and breath training, is that last 15 minutes, the post extra time, half an hour, the penalty shootout thereafter. How are you resetting, reshuffling, so that you can get your mind in a place where you can make these decisions, not even necessarily just go for that fancy stuff, but just to be able to make these informed decisions, have that working memory kicking in, and that ability to then perform thereafter.
I was like, okay, I think he's gonna go rather with that, because it gives him better chance. When you're stressed, your, motorical senses are not as, it's not working that well sometimes. So you want to curl nice one and you mishit it and you put it in the middle of me height and it looks bad. So I was like, okay, he's going to try to shoot hard.
Here, Petr Čech has just said exactly that if you are stressed, your brain is not going to be working as efficiently, you're not going to be having those efficient decision making, so you're going to fall back to something you're also not going to want to look silly or stupid in front of your teammates, your fans, everyone watching at home, to doing something fancy, and then it just gets curled into the keeper's hands and it looks like you didn't even try. So Petr Čech's just highlighting what we've just said.
And then the way he ran towards the ball, I'm like, okay, his shape, the run, the angle, I'm thinking, okay, he's going to shoot strong. Of course, he could have shot different way, but then, there's a lot of calculations in that.
And this is something I often speak about when we talk about fitness for players or conditioning stamina for players late in game, the last 15 minutes, that there's more to this than fitness. There's a trainable habit that you can do, which Petr Čech is highlighting here perfectly, is that as Iron Robin is running up, about to strike that ball, his brain is working. He's in what people call the flow state. You only get into the flow state if your breathing is functional and you have the ability to breathe functionally in that level of pressure. Obviously, there's a level of exertion that we're going to talk about in a minute, but in that level of pressure, to be able to breathe properly and not go into dysfunctional breathing, high in the upper chest, etc., is the difference between a good player and a player that can perform at their ability under the lights of a Champions League final. And it's really interesting to hear him talk about that as he's running up, the calculations he can do mentally because he's in that flow state, and the ability to then react to what is happening in front of him.
Well, the one thing is as well, you need to stop thinking about that your legs feel like jelly. You shake, your heart beat is 185, all that. So
the interviewer asks him the question here: how does he mentally be able to cope with this? And as he's saying, you just need to forget about it. The best way to forget about it is if your breathing's under control and you can control your nervous system response. The direct controller of that, the subconscious controller of that, is going to be your breathing. To influence the subconscious controller, you need to do conscious things, and that is have good breathing efficiency, which leads to these results that he's speaking about right here.
You just go. You need to find a way just to reshuffle and literally go with the process.
Again, here he's saying you literally need to find a way to reshuffle so you can go with the process. This is breathing training 101, breath efficiency. Once you have breathing efficiency, this is exactly the result you get.
And of course, there is a big difference between elite athlete and everybody else. Because if you take the amount of practice, the years you play, in that moment counts for nothing.
This, I think, is an interesting comment because he's talking about you've probably seen them in training, those people that are really good in training, really good in the run up to a final, but then just fall apart in the final when the lights get bright and it's center stage, they just fall apart. And this is what he's talking about here, that efficiency will always win out over talent. You can be talented, you can be good in training, but if you can't be efficient, if you have no good breathing efficiency, stuff like that, maybe more than just that. I mean, obviously I'm speaking from a very narrow perspective, but when you have that efficiency, that is what helps you win, because that's what helps you fall back, helps you problem solve under pressure, under load, helps you understand what's happening and go through a working memory and have that spatial awareness. Is through having that efficiency that outweighs that just pure talent.
It's only your head. If you manage to go through that noise of all the expectation, everything around, crowd, big moment, Champions League final, millions of people watching, probably last chance, if he scores, we are out, or we dead. You need to just forget about all this and you just go, okay, what's my job? What is the possibility? What can happen? What is he going to do? How I can stop it? When you do that... And
here he's talking about the psychophysiological aspects of performance. Breathing is obviously a key component in that. Thus improving breathing and breathing mechanics means that you have the ability to do exactly what Petr Čech is describing here and be able to perform in exactly the way he's trying to describe here as well.
You always hear stories about Michael Jordans and Tiger Woods, and you can take any other elite athlete from the past and present. The difference ultimately, it's not their physical ability, it's not only their technical ability, it's obviously a bit of a talent, but it's their head.
Again, here, all the names that he's just saying. You can probably even think of a bunch more players. And again, here he's reiterating it. Efficiency over talent. These names, these Tiger Woods, the Michael Jordans, they have talent, but they have the efficiency to be able to apply it at every single moment, every single level, under every single pressure load. And that is the difference, being efficient with how you can then win in your chosen sport.
Can you do that under pressure? Yeah.
So when it got to the shootout, you probably felt pretty good because you knew you'd done the research on every single player on that team.
Yeah, but it doesn't guarantee you anything. But you go there and thinking, okay, with all that research and all that preparation, I knew that I'm prepared. And I can tell you, the first one I touched, second one I was there, but he shot it too well. Then Neuer, obviously, I was waiting for a shot in the middle. Then I went a bit too late, and then he scored. On the third, after the first, I went to the side and I said to myself, just keep going. It's inevitable you're going to save one, because like it's impossible that you go right away all the time and it would keep avoiding you. And the more my knowledge went there, I'm like, okay, this is the one, and then I saved. But then, and then obviously...
Again, like you're talking about here, the research makes you feel good, but it's not what gets the job done. What gets the job done is being able to keep calm under that load, under that pressure, and having control over the nervous system. How do we control a system that is subconscious? We do it through conscious means, mechanisms, and one of those conscious mechanisms you can use is breathing, which helps you influence the nervous system, to help you be able to apply the information, the studying you've done prior, helps you apply that in game, and that's exactly the long way of saying what Petr Čech is saying in that clip.
Coming back to preparation, I think the season 8-9, that was when Schweinsteiger shot a couple of penalties where he stopped. After that, he didn't do that anymore. So the depth of the preparation actually saved me, because when he started running, I was like, I'm not sure. The moment he stopped, I'm like, okay, I know where you go.
Because he did the pause and the run-up.
And this is where preparation and efficiency meet, is when he's done the preparation, but he's been efficient enough in terms of his physical performance, or how he can physically perform, to then he can recall that information in game at the highest level, to then know that he's actually using a older penalty technique, and then he knows where that's going to go and how to save that. So that is a really interesting clip to see where efficiency and preparation meet over talent, and relying on talent alone is actually how those two, efficiency and preparation, meet to actually be able to get that result. And yeah, it's a super interesting interview. Well, thanks for watching, guys. I know it's a bit of a longer video than we normally do, but I just saw that clip. I think it's very interesting. We could get even further into the weeds in it. If you want to talk more about it, then comment below. And we can talk more about breathing efficiency and how breathing efficiency actually aids in all these things you've just heard Petr Čech talk about, especially at the highest levels, the pinnacles of things like Champions League finals. Make sure before you go that you like the video, subscribe if you would like to. It costs nothing, but it helps me, helps the channel, and I do very much appreciate it. But yeah, and I will see you on the next video. We might do that, go back, and we're going to do that biomechanical one, talking about torso rotation, breathing mechanics, and how that adds 80% of your movement is from that particular area. So making that efficient in breathing mechanics aids in that. We'll get into that in the video anyway. See you all again very soon.